I stood in the lawyer's office, my hands trembling as I stared at the document in front of me. My will, except it wasn't my will anymore. Every word had been changed. My home, my life savings, my investments, everything I'd spent 40 years building, now belonged entirely to my son. My name was still at the top, my signature at the bottom, but I didn't write these words. I never wanted this. The lawyer looked at me with pity and confusion. "Mrs. Lawson, you signed this 6 weeks ago. Don't you remember?" But I did remember that day. I remembered my son Michael bringing papers for me to review. I remembered feeling so tired, lying down for a quick nap while he waited. I remembered waking up an hour later to find him gone, the papers signed and witnessed. What I didn't remember was reading what I'd actually signed. Now I had nothing. The bank account I'd checked that morning showed $15. $15 after a lifetime of work. My own son had erased me from my own life while I slept. How could he do this to me? And how was I going to prove what really happened? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and stay with me to hear how this ends. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You might see your own family in this story. My name is Margaret Lawson, though everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 71 years old, and up until recently, I thought I'd seen the worst life could offer. I lost my beloved husband Robert 8 years ago, said goodbye to the antique shop that was my pride for 35 years. I've watched my children grow, move away, build families of their own. I lived in the home Robert and I bought on Maple Lane, a modest place. Nothing extravagant, but filled with memories, warmth, and the kind of dust that only comes from a lifetime of living and loving. I'm the kind of woman who keeps soup in the freezer just in case someone stops by. Who can't help but ask, "Are you eating enough?" Every time my daughter Jennifer calls from London, who still organizes every drawer in alphabetical order out of habit from my shopkeeper days. My hands have their share of age spots, sure, and the skin is thinner now, more delicate, but they are still capable of making bread for neighbors, of gardening, of holding my grandchildren in a gentle squeeze that says, "I love you, even if you're all the way on the other side of the world." I've never been rich, but I was never poor. Robert and I worked hard, saved every penny, bought antiques for less than a loaf of bread, and sold them for enough to pay the mortgage. We lived simply, quietly, but the house was always full of laughter. My daughter Jennifer was the adventurous one, always off to another country, sketching flowers in the margins of her homework, dreaming big. Michael was a handful from the start. He liked things a certain way, fast, flashy, impressive. I don't think he ever forgave me for driving a sensible sedan instead of a shiny SUV. Still, I loved them both equally. I wanted them to have opportunities I never did, to inherit the fruits of Robert's and my labor. That's why 3 years ago I sold our shop. It was time. My knees couldn't stand on the old wood floors all day. Michael congratulated me over steak dinner, said I was finally retiring like a normal person. Jennifer insisted on planning a garden for me before she flew back to London, her thoughtful way of keeping a piece of herself here. I set myself up for comfort, invested the money, kept my house, and I drew up a will, fair, equal, no secrets. Half to Michael, half to Jennifer, a few pieces earmarked for charity or friends. I kept the original copy in a safety deposit box, just for peace of mind, and gave Michael the legal power to help with banking and paperwork when I got tired. I never dreamed that trust would be my undoing. I spent my days gardening, volunteering at church, reading novels in the glow of late afternoon sun. My best friend Dot, who'd helped me at the shop for 25 years, came by for tea and gossip every Thursday. We'd laugh about people we used to know, shake our heads at the news, or reminisce about stringing bright holiday lights on the little shop window and watching the children press their noses against the glass. Michael called often back then. He'd ask if I needed groceries, reminded me to lock the doors, coached me on modern banking with his usual slightly condescending tone. I need to be honest with you. Part of me was proud he wanted to help, to take care of details. I'd always been the dependable one, the mother who balanced checkbooks, paid bills on time, filled out every school form twice just in case. It was nice at first, not to worry so much, but looking back now, I see the signs I missed. Little things that didn't feel important at the time. Michael pressuring me to make him joint owner of my bank account because it was just easier. And I let him. He was my son after all. The day he insisted I set up online access and give him my backup codes for emergencies. Dot gently asked, "Aren't you worried, Maggie?" "You're still sharp as a tack." I laughed it off, told her I trusted Michael. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you love, you'll understand why I couldn't see what was coming. Jennifer only visited once a year after her children were born. The expensive travel and the chaos of life pulling her farther away. Our phone calls became lifelines, little bubbles of warmth in my days. Sometimes she asked about the will, whether I felt safe. Always gentle, never pushy. But when I told her Michael was handling everything, she'd shift in her seat, her voice tight. "Just promise me you won't sign anything without reading it, Mom." I promised. At the time, I believed it. Dot and I would sometimes see Michael in town, rushing between meetings, always dressed sharper than anyone else on Main Street. He'd flash a smile, pat my shoulder, and say, "You're still my favorite girl, Mom." Sometimes his phone would buzz, and he'd frown, stepping aside to bark at someone about money. I didn't pay enough attention. Looking back now, I wonder what he was hiding. Everyone called me practical, but I was also sentimental. I kept old letters, birthday cards, even the first lease to my shop. For Michael, I kept every trophy he'd ever won, the ones he joked about selling on eBay someday. For Jennifer, I kept every sketch, every photograph she sent me from abroad. My house, my heart, my whole life, it was all built on the idea of family first. But the foundation began to tremble one slow afternoon in May. Michael came by with coffee for Dot and me, smiled broader than usual, and handed me an envelope. "Just some paperwork, Mom. I want to make sure everything's up to date. Banks these days want more proof than ever." I trusted him. I barely glanced at the cover sheet. I signed the first page, thinking it was another bank authorization. But the way his fingers hovered, the way Dot looked at me, something unsettled me. Still, I signed. That night, I told Jennifer about it on the phone. She sighed. "Please send me a photo of what you signed, Mom." I promised, but I forgot. The world is filled with busy days and good intentions. It's so easy to think everything will work out until it doesn't. If you're still with me, I hope you'll stay to hear how a single nap changed my entire life. Dot called me the next morning, concerned about Michael's sudden attention to my finances. "He's never been your favorite, Maggie, let's be honest." "Why now?" I shrugged her off. "He's just being helpful." I wanted to believe it, that my son would protect me, not use me. I spent the day in my garden, pulling weeds and drinking sweet tea. I told myself that trust was the glue that kept families together. Weeks passed. Michael visited more often than before, always with a stack of papers. Sometimes I'd sign after only a glance, still trusting. I didn't realize the foundation had shifted until the day I found a notice of withdrawal on my bank statement. Money gone, without my knowledge. The fear crept in then, cold and slow. But I brushed it aside, certain it was a banking error. After all, Michael reassured me whenever I asked, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll handle it." Looking back now, I see the cracks widening. I saw Michael in a heated phone call outside my house one morning, his face twisted in anger. He spun around when he noticed me watching and said, "Just some work stuff. Mom, nothing for you to worry about." I believed him, just like I always had. Family dinners became rare, replaced by rushed visits and brief phone calls. Michael stopped bringing groceries, stopped asking about my health. He began to avoid Dot altogether, muttering something about her interfering. Dot warned me gently but firmly, "Don't give away your power, Maggie. Even the kindest ones can surprise you." At the time, I laughed. Now I wish I hadn't. I'd always dreamed of spending my twilight years surrounded by family, warmth, and the comfort of knowing I'd provided for those I loved. I never imagined the silence that would soon close in around me, the feeling of being alone in a house filled with the echoes of laughter that had vanished. The day it all changed was ordinary. I couldn't have known what was coming. That's the truth of these stories. Betrayal rarely bursts through the door. It creeps in, quiet as the sun setting on a summer evening. That's when everything changed for me. It was a Wednesday in late May, one of those warm afternoons when the light falls just right across the kitchen table, making the old lace curtains glow. Dot had just left after our weekly tea, her laughter lingering in the air like perfume. I felt a touch of sleepiness settle into my bones, a common enough feeling at my age. I'd barely sat down with my knitting when I heard Michael's car pull up. He came in brisk, smiling, his arms full of folders and a fresh coffee from the artisan place downtown. "You look tired, Mom," he said, concern painted on his face, but his eyes flickered around the room as though searching for something lost. I forced a smile, grateful for company, though an uneasy shiver tiptoed down my spine. Michael busied himself putting down his things, never sitting, always fidgeting. "Lots of paperwork for you today," he said cheerfully. "Banks are changing everything again. They want us to redo your will to add new clauses about the house and the stocks. It's all meant to protect you. Mom, I checked with our lawyer and he said it's urgent." Sometimes he talked so fast that I struggled to keep up. I looked at the stack of papers, feeling overwhelmed. "Can we go over this together?" I asked, trying not to sound feeble. "Of course, Mom," he replied, patting my hand too quickly. "But I have to run soon, big meeting. Why don't you look it over, and I'll explain anything complicated after." Something about the way he handed me the pen felt rushed, calculated. I tried to read, but the words clouded together. The legalities stacked, page after page, clauses about trusts and property enmeshed with language I'd never used. My eyelids fluttered. Michael noticed. "You're exhausted. Why don't you take a short nap? I'll wait here, promise." His voice softened, almost gentle. "I'll just make a call and keep an eye on things." "You rest," I nodded. The truth is, I was exhausted. I'd slept poorly for days, worries about bills and birthdays and what to cook for Sunday. I told him I'd be back in 20 minutes just to rest my eyes. I left the papers stacked neatly, pen beside them, the sunlight warming the armchair where I lay down. I remember drifting off to the sound of Michael's voice, low and hurried on his phone. Dream fragments tumbled through my mind. Robert's warm arms, Jennifer's laughter, Michael's first steps. I awoke suddenly, startled by silence. The house felt different, empty. Michael was gone. On the kitchen table, the papers were gone too. I found a single sticky note left behind. "Signed everything for you, Mom. Love, Michael." A slow panic crept in. My heart thudded as I checked my phone. No missed calls from Michael, no texts. Dot's number stared up at me from my favorites. I almost called her, but told myself not to be dramatic. Maybe Michael was just trying to be helpful. By dinner time, anxiety gnawed at me. I couldn't quite recall signing anything. Had I? My memory, sharp for 7 decades, flickered and failed. I searched the house for copies. Nothing. Not in the desk, not in the box where I kept important papers. Only the faint smell of coffee and the weight of worry lingered. The next day, Michael called and brushed off my concerns. "You signed everything, Mom. I double-checked with the lawyer. It's all clean, trust me." "You're in good hands." His voice was too smooth, too quick. He didn't ask how I felt or offer to review anything together. Jennifer called later, cheerful from London. "How are you, Mom? Did you get the plants I sent?" Her kindness made the silence around me feel heavier. I told her about Michael's visit, about the papers that seemed to vanish. I tried to sound casual, but she picked up on my worry. "Mom, are you sure about those documents? Could you send me pictures?" I promised, feeling embarrassed that I didn't have any. Dot came by and saw the tightness in my face. "What's going on, Maggie? You look like you haven't slept." I told her, my words halting, afraid of sounding paranoid, afraid of admitting how lost I felt. She frowned, her gentle eyes sharpening. "I never liked how Michael rushes you with those papers. Let me help you find them. If anything feels off, we'll call Rebecca at the Tribune. She helped my cousin when her nephew tried to steal her house. But I couldn't face that yet. Maybe I was overreacting." A week passed uneasily. Michael didn't visit. Jennifer called twice, worried. Dot checked in every day, filling my kitchen with the soothing presence only an old friend can bring. But anxiety pressed on my chest when I opened the mail. A letter arrived from the bank, marked urgent. My hands shook as I slit the envelope. "Dear Mrs. Lawson, this letter is to confirm changes to your estate as per your recent signed instructions. Your will has been updated, and all proceeds, assets, and savings have been reassigned in full to Mr. Michael Lawson as sole beneficiary. Please contact us if you have any questions." I read the words twice, unable to breathe. Sole beneficiary. Full asset transfer. But that wasn't the will I wrote. That wasn't the promise I made to my children. My voice barely worked when I called Michael. He answered on the second ring, casual as ever. "Hey, Mom, everything all right?" I read him the letter. The silence that met me was cold, sharp. The lawyers said it's normal. Something about streamlining the estate. Jennifer lives abroad, it's messier with international stuff. This way, I can take care of everything. You don't need to worry. I tried to argue, but he brushed me off. "It's for convenience, Mom. Trust the experts." Hot tears burned my eyes. For the first time, a terrible question pierced me. Had Michael tricked me? I dialed Jennifer, my words tumbling out as fear made my voice tremble. She was stunned. "Mom, you never wanted to cut me out. There's something wrong here." Her anger gave me strength. She promised to call the bank from London. I hung up, heart pounding, suddenly aware that my world was changing faster than I could catch up. Dot arrived the next morning, bringing cinnamon rolls and determination. "We're not letting this go, Maggie. Something's wrong. I want you to call Rebecca Torres at the Tribune. She helped my cousin. She knows these things inside and out." I resisted. Rebecca was an outsider, a stranger. Admitting my son had done this felt shameful, like I'd failed as a mother. Dot squeezed my hand. "Michael's not a child anymore. If he did something wrong, it's not your fault." But decades of motherhood told me I'd somehow let him down, that the shame was mine to bear. That night, I cried for hours, my pillow wet with tears. I replayed every moment, every paper signed, every time I brushed aside Dot's concerns, every time I told Jennifer not to worry. Desperation clawed at me. My house felt cold, unwelcoming, the walls closing in. The next morning, a knock at the door startled me. Dot stood outside with her phone in hand. "Rebecca's on the line. She wants to talk to you. Please, Maggie, just tell her what happened." I accepted the phone with trembling hands, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Hello, Mrs. Lawson? I'm Rebecca Torres. Dorothy tells me there's something urgent." Her voice was gentle, but purposeful. I explained everything. Michael's rush, the missing papers, the sudden changes at the bank. The shame in my voice was heavy, but Rebecca's patience eased it away. "This happens more than you'd think," she said quietly. "You are not alone. If you'll allow me, I'll help you piece this together." I nodded, relief and terror mingling. The truth was, I needed help. I couldn't solve this alone. Rebecca spoke with confidence. "First things first. You need to get your bank statements, the letters, any documents Michael gave you. Together, we'll create a timeline. I'll reach out to your bank and lawyer, not as your attorney, but as a journalist investigating elder fraud. For the first time since my nap, a spark of hope flickered in me. But the road ahead wasn't easy. Dot and I spent hours digging through drawers, old files, closets. We found scraps, copies of old wills, charity receipts, birthday cards. Nothing from that day, nothing with my recent signature. Dot swore she saw Michael take a stack of papers out under his arm, but the details blurred. Rebecca met us at the house, her satchel full of notepads and recorders. She asked me to recount everything, even the little details. How Michael brought coffee, how tired I was, how quickly he urged me to nap. I felt exposed, ashamed, but Rebecca's kindness was medicine. She assured me, elder fraud cases often depend on details. Don't worry if some memories are missing. The patterns often reveal the truth. She explained that she'd seen cases where adult children tricked parents into signing documents while fatigued or confused. She described a case where a nephew forged an aunt's signature, changing her will without her knowledge. Listening, horror washed over me. Was this what Michael had done? Rebecca took my authorization to contact the bank and lawyer directly, asking government agencies for copies of transaction histories and signature records. The process crawled forward slowly, thick with bureaucracy. Michael didn't know what was brewing. He didn't call or visit for days. Dot watched for his car, scowling at every passing sedan. Jennifer called every evening, her anger sharp but supportive. Meanwhile, Rebecca worked tirelessly, reviewing bank withdrawals, tracking Michael's digital trail, even speaking with neighbors and shopkeepers who had seen him acting suspiciously. I waited, my nerves stretched thin. The fear of homelessness loomed. My account emptied, my house no longer truly mine. At 71, the world felt too harsh, too cold for someone who'd always believed in kindness. If you've ever had everything swept away in a single moment, you'll know that feeling. Panic that claws at you, shame that keeps you silent, and a desperate wish to turn back time. Dot never left my side. We made casseroles for neighbors, planted bulbs in the garden. She'd squeeze my hand whenever despair set in, whispering, "Justice always finds its way, Maggie. You'll see." I clung to her hope, trying to believe. I wish I could tell you that the answer came quickly, that a phone call restored what I'd lost. But life isn't so simple. Weeks turned into months, each day an agony of waiting, hoping, searching. Rebecca reported back after 2 weeks. We found email evidence. Michael coordinated with the lawyer, asking for complete control. He sent scanned documents where your signature looks shaky and not in your usual style. The lawyer never verified with you directly. There are odd timestamps. One shows you signing during your usual nap time. Hearing this, a mix of anger and relief surged in me. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't invited this loss. My son had betrayed me. I choked up as I explained this to Jennifer, her voice crackling with sorrow and rage from London. "Mom, I'm filing a complaint. I'll testify for you. Michael has gone too far." Rebecca encouraged me to take action, helping me prepare a press statement. "Your story will help others," she promised. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the same place I'd trusted Michael. My house felt different, burdened by secrets. But I had allies, Dot, Jennifer, Rebecca, and the faint hope that truth would still have its day. If this story breaks your heart like it does mine, please hit that like button and tell me in the comments if you've ever felt betrayed by family. I didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning. Each day brought a new heartbreak. The first wave was financial. The bank called on a gray Tuesday morning, a polite but nervous-sounding young man saying, "Mrs. Lawson, I'm afraid your primary account is overdrawn by $200. My heart felt like it stopped. There must be a mistake, I stammered. But he read off the details, transaction after transaction, withdrawals I never approved, checks I never wrote. The voice on the line apologized, offered numbers for fraud support, but the damage had been done. I asked how this was possible. He hesitated, cleared his throat, and said, Mr. Michael Lawson made these withdrawals using your joint authority. All appears in order, on the computer at least. I hung up, hands shaking, staring at the floral teacup in my hand. Michael, my son, had bled me dry a little at a time. Was this how he paid for his new car, the vacations he bragged about on social media? For the first time, I felt something darker than sadness. Bitterness, thick and heavy, began to seep in. I had trusted him with the keys to my life, and he'd stolen more than money. He'd stolen my belief in family. Dot found me on the porch that afternoon, still in my nightgown, staring at nothing. Maggie, come inside. You're shaking. I couldn't speak, only handed her the printout from the bank. Her eyes flashed. That boy, he's gone too far. We need more help. Rebecca arrived within the hour, her brown hair caught up in a hasty bun. She sat with us at the kitchen table, her voice steady. This is common. Once they get access, the financial abuse escalates. But if he did this, he's left a breadcrumb trail. She called her contacts, had me sign more papers. The words forensic accountant and financial elder abuse spun in my ears, a language I'd only ever read about in the newspaper. Now, it was my life. The shame was suffocating. I couldn't sleep. Every time the furnace clicked on, I thought I heard Michael's car outside, felt fear spike in my throat. When Dot offered to stay the night, I almost refused, pride wrestling with the need for comfort. But that night, her calm breathing in the guest room was the only thing that kept the darkness at bay. The next blow was isolation, a kind I never expected from my own flesh and blood. Michael cut off my access to the family group chat, changed the passwords to my email for security, and suddenly, birthday photos of Jennifer's children stopped arriving. When I tried to call my grandson David, the line rang through, unanswered. Later, Jennifer would tell me Michael had texted the family, saying I was having memory problems and needed space to recover. When I confronted him after church one Sunday, he met me at the door with a carefully rehearsed smile. It's for your own good, Mom. You seemed stressed, so I told Jennifer and the kids to give you time. The doctor says elderly parents need peace. My voice rose, trembling with injustice. I never asked for space. I want to talk to my grandchildren, Michael. I want my life back. He shrugged, walked away, leaving me standing in the vestibule as our neighbors glanced over with pitying eyes. The last strands holding my family together frayed, and the loneliness was carved deeper. I turned to Dot, my voice barely a whisper. How could he cut me out so easily? She wrapped her arm around my shoulder. Because you let him control the flow, Maggie. But we're going to get it back, every last piece. But the more we tried to fight, the more Michael tightened his grip. I found myself locked out of my own online accounts. The password to my savings account didn't work anymore. My credit card was declined at the grocery store, and I stood there, cheeks burning, as the cashier whispered to a manager. Your son said you were traveling and to freeze the card, the bank manager finally confessed when I called in tears. But I'm right here. I never left. I never authorized that. I heard the irritation in my own voice, edged with a despair I couldn't swallow. Rebecca took note of every incident, each unjust lockout. He's creating the appearance you're not capable, she said. It's classic manipulation, trying to isolate you, making it harder for you to reach out for help. It wasn't just about the money. He came for my home next. One Thursday morning, I woke to find a for sale sign planted on my front lawn, right next to the azaleas I had just pruned. A pang went through me, a violation I was unprepared for. The memory is sharp. A white sign, the agent's name in bold, the phone number Michael had used for years. I stormed outside in my robe, pulling the sign from the soil with shaking hands. Michael arrived moments later, folding his arms. "This isn't your decision, Mom. You signed over the house weeks ago, remember? It's in my name now, and I have to do what's best for the family." "No," I croaked, disbelief flooding my chest. "You lied to me." "I would never give up this house," he smirked, stepping closer. "It's too late, Mom. You're making a scene." Dot ran out, anger radiating off her. "You should be ashamed of yourself, Michael. This is your mother's home. She's not going anywhere." He turned on her with cold indifference. "Stay out of this, Dorothy. This is family business." Dot didn't back down. "And you're a coward, Michael Lawson, for hiding behind signatures and paperwork." A neighbor, Mrs. Patel, watched from her porch, concern etched into her face. I fought back tears, clutching the for sale sign like a shield. For the first time, I wondered if I'd lose not just my family, but the very home that held all my memories. Rebecca urged me to take pictures of everything: the sign, the paperwork, Michael's antagonistic stance. "We're building evidence, Maggie. Every brick matters." I nodded, but dread grew in my heart. If he could do this, what couldn't he do? My safe world had shrunk to a handful of rooms and a friend's steady arm. Later that night, I stood in my kitchen, staring at my reflection in the window. I was losing the last of what made life feel like mine. My hands trembled. My eyes, so often praised for their warmth, looked haunted. The woman staring back at me was still Margaret Lawson, but she was also something new, desperate, frightened, grasping for any thread that might lead her out of the darkness. But this story isn't just about what was taken from me. It's about what I found, too. Courage, allies, the voice I'd lost somewhere along the way. The next day, my old pastor, Reverend Wilkins, stopped by, having heard strange rumors from Michael about me leaving town. He looked at me with gentle concern. "Margaret, what's truly happening?" I broke down as I told him of the isolation, the theft, and the looming threat of homelessness. He patted my hand. "You have more people on your side than you know. I'll speak to the congregation. Perhaps someone has legal contacts or advice." For the first time, the community began to pay attention. More than once, I found a casserole or handwritten note on my porch. One said plainly, "We believe you, Maggie." The battle lines were drawn. Michael, infuriated by the attention, began to escalate. Each new day brought a fresh attack on my dignity. It started publicly, in ways I never thought possible. I went to the post office one morning, a simple trip for stamps, and overheard Mrs. Dwyer at the counter speaking in a hush to the clerk. "It's so sad about Margaret, isn't it? Michael told me her memory's slipping, poor thing. That's why she's moving in with him. She can't manage her money at all now, apparently." My breath caught. People turned toward me, forced smiles flickering across their faces, as if I were already a ghost. Tears pricked my eyes. I pretended not to notice, hurried through my errands, but the sting of humiliation lingered like a bruise. Dot met me outside, anger set in her jaw. She muttered, "He's destroying your reputation, Maggie, bit by bit. If you aren't careful, he'll have the whole town believing you're unfit to live alone." That's how they win these cases, isolating the victim, turning support into suspicion. That night I called Jennifer, trying not to break down. Her voice shook with outrage. "Mum, you have to fight back. Don't let him take everything. Not your home. Not your name." She promised she'd book a ticket home, circumstances be damned. But I could hear the worry in her voice about the cost, the job, her own children. For the first time, I felt utterly alone, even as she tried to reassure me. Then came the nursing home threat, a blow I never anticipated from my own child. Michael arrived unannounced, house keys in hand, cold determination in his eyes. "We need to talk, Mom. You can't live here anymore." "It's not safe. You left the stove on, the fridge door open. Jennifer and I have agreed it's time for you to move to Pine Meadows. They have staff for people your age." I stared at him, stunned. "You've never asked Jennifer, have you?" My voice trembled, but I stood my ground. I'm fine. I don't want to go anywhere. Michael's lips twisted into a sneer. You don't get a choice. I'm your legal guardian now. I can sign the admission papers for you. It's what's best. He produced a ready-made stack of documents, waving them in front of me. My own signature was printed at the bottom, shaky and unfamiliar. My anger burned hotter than my fear. You forged these. I never signed any papers about a nursing home. He shrugged, barely hiding a smirk. The law's on my side now, Mom. It doesn't matter what you remember. Dot, hearing the commotion, rushed in from the garden. You are not putting her in a home against her will, Michael. I'll call the police if I have to, and I know every neighbor on this street will back me up. Her voice rang out like a warning bell. Michael glared at her, muttered a string of curses, and stormed out. The silence he left behind felt heavy and electrified, as if a storm were brewing just outside. The next days blurred with fear and anxiety. Rebecca urged me to avoid signing anything further, to keep my phone with me at all times, and to write down every incident in a little blue notebook. I filled page after page, dates, words spoken, actions taken. It became my lifeline, some small piece of control. But Michael wasn't finished. The gaslighting intensified. He began telling neighbors and even my own doctor that I was becoming confused, that I repeated questions and forgot names. He'd accompany me to appointments, answering questions for me, insisting on sitting in for consistency. When the doctor asked if I was feeling safe, Michael would squeeze my arm just enough to send a message. My voice shrank. I let him speak for me, frozen in place by fear of what he might do next. Rebecca reminded me. This is how abusers operate. They undermine your confidence, so even you begin to doubt yourself. The words echoed painfully. Sometimes late at night, I wondered if I had made mistakes. Maybe I really was losing my grip on reality. But Dot, never wavering, shook her head fiercely. I've known you for 30 years, Maggie. Your mind is as sharp as ever. Don't let him win. She called Jennifer and put her on speaker. Their voices joined in a chorus of support across continents. I wish I could tell you I fought back with courage every single day. The truth is, there were moments I felt utterly defeated. There were nights when Michael's contempt echoed in my dreams, when I woke up thinking the fight had already been lost. But fate, as it sometimes does, left me breadcrumbs anyway. Rebecca arrived one Saturday, her satchel bursting with files, her face brighter than I'd seen in weeks. I found something, Maggie. Michael got careless. She produced a stack of printed emails, texts between Michael and the estate lawyer. There were messages full of impatience. Just get me the form. She'll sign anything if I bring her coffee and paperwork. And another where Michael sent a scanned signature, requesting the lawyer copy it onto multiple documents. The lawyer's reply chilled me. Are you sure she meant to leave everything exclusively to you? Odd, given your sister. Michael's answer. It's what she wants. Just process it. She's not all there these days. I stared at the printouts, my face flushing with a mix of shame and vindication. Rebecca squeezed my hand. He underestimated the power of documentation. These emails prove intent, and if he forged your signature, a handwriting specialist can help us prove it. It was as if the sun broke through after months of rain. For the first time, I felt I might have a way out. A crack in the wall Michael had built around my life. But that small hope was quickly tested. Michael stopped by to check on me after hearing rumors swirling around town about an investigation. His mask slipped. You think some nosy reporter is going to save you? No one will believe a senile old woman over their bright, successful son. He glared at Dot for good measure. And you meddling old bat, you'll regret sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong. I looked him in the eye, anger steadying my voice. You have lied and manipulated long enough, Michael. I may not have money or power, but I have people who believe me, and I have the truth. That's all I need. For the first time, Michael looked rattled. He left without another word. Rebecca began preparing a press story, one that would shine a light on families like mine, on elderly people betrayed by their own blood. She brought in an attorney, Mr. Patterson, who agreed to represent me pro bono after hearing the evidence. He arranged an emergency hearing to freeze my remaining assets and challenge the will. "I don't want to drag my son through the mud," I confessed to Rebecca during our final planning session. My heart ached at the idea of washing our family shame in public. Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. "He made his choices, Maggie. You have a right to justice. Telling your story might save others." With Dot at my side, I signed the authorization papers, my hand no longer trembling. If you've ever had to stand up to your own flesh and blood, if you've ever felt the weight of love and betrayal in a single moment, you'll know how hard it was, and how necessary. If this story breaks your heart like it does mine, please hit that like button and tell me in the comments if you've ever felt betrayed by family. The days leading to the hearing were long, brittle, and full of tension. Michael tried one last time to break me. He called, his voice slick with false concern. "Mom, it's not too late to stop this circus. Drop the charges. Sign the house back and I'll make sure you're comfortable. No drama." It was the first time in months that I recognized the child I'd once rocked to sleep, his voice cracking on the edge of real fear. But I knew with a painful clarity that he was fighting for himself, never for me. "No, Michael. It's my turn to fight for myself now. I suggest you get a good lawyer." The line went dead. Jennifer arrived the day before the hearing, her arms full of gifts, her eyes full of tears. She hugged me as if we could put the world back together just by holding on tightly enough. Her presence filled the house with warmth and music again as she played old records in the living room. For the first time in months, I felt like the mother I'd once been. Not the victim, but the heart of something worth saving. Dot, never one for sentiment, made us all tea and reminded me to wear something confident. That evening, the three of us, 3 generations of Lawson women, sat around the kitchen table, going over every detail of the case, every memory, every scrap of love left in our battered family. Outside, the azaleas bloomed anyway, pink and defiant against the chaos. The long night before court, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my window, watching the moonlight pool over the garden and letting myself hope, just a little bit, that morning would bring justice. The morning of the hearing dawned with heavy rain. I sat at the kitchen table, my heart pounding so loudly I thought Dot must be able to hear it. Attorney Patterson arrived promptly, his suit immaculate, his gray hair neatly parted. He glanced at Rebecca's files, nodding as he flipped through the damning emails, the bank statements, the pages of my own handwriting compared beside the strange, wobbly signatures Michael had produced. "Margaret, you aren't alone today. We have witnesses, documentation, and the support of everyone who knows you." "The judge will listen," Patterson assured me. "But I need you to be brave. I need you to speak." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Before leaving, Dot pressed a small photograph into my hand. It was Robert and me on our wedding day, both of us laughing, carefree as children. "Carry this with you," she whispered, "and remember who you are." Jennifer squeezed my hand, her tears barely contained. "You taught us what family means, Mom. We will not let him rewrite that." We entered the courthouse as a unit, me, Jennifer, Dot, Rebecca, and Patterson. Michael waited inside, alone, avoiding my gaze. The courtroom was cold, the wood varnished to a shine, the air heavy with tension. The judge entered, stern and thoughtful, calling for order. Patterson presented our evidence. The emails showing Michael's manipulation, the expert's report on forged signatures, witness statements from neighbors, even my doctor's notes stating my mental faculties were entirely intact. Michael's lawyer tried to cast doubt, mentioned age, questioned my memory, argued I was confused. But when the judge invited me to speak, something rose in me. I stood, every part of me shaking, and told my story. I raised my son to tell the truth, to cherish family. I trusted him with my life's work. I never thought I'd be the victim of my own child's ambition. I did not sign away my legacy to one person. I intended for my daughter and my son to share, to keep our family united. The will presented here is not the one I wrote myself and safeguarded. I may be old, but I am not confused. I am not senile. I am a woman who knows exactly what she wants. Please let me reclaim my dignity and my family's honor. The room went quiet, the words hanging like prayer. The judge, eyes focused intensely on me, nodded. We will consider the evidence carefully. I sat, squeezing my wrist beneath the table. Over the next hours, Patterson cross-examined Michael's lawyer, pressed relentlessly about the timeline. The signatures, the blurred copies, and the abrupt asset transfers. The judge listened, eyebrows furrowed, as Patterson revealed Michael's gambling debts, uncovered through banking records. The picture was clear for all who wished to see. The final straw came when Rebecca produced surveillance video from the bank. Michael making withdrawals on days I was home alone, documented as asleep in my calendar. The judge requested all statements, then asked Michael directly, "Did you ever explain the will's changes to your mother? Did she review each page with you?" Michael stuttered, his mask slipping. "She trusts me. I didn't think she'd want the details. She said she was tired." The judge shook his head. Trust is not a substitute for consent. There, in public, Michael could no longer pretend. The truth was laid bare. He'd orchestrated every move, gambling with family for financial gain. Before the verdict was read, a final witness arrived, Mrs. Patel, my neighbor, testifying that she saw Michael slipping documents into his bag while I napped. Her quiet courage added a new layer of truth to the tapestry. We waited in the hallway afterward, the tension suffocating. Paced, muttering angry prayers. Jennifer clung to me, whispering, "Whatever happens, we will fight this to the end, Mom." Rebecca typed away on her laptop, already working on the story that might save others. Attorney Patterson patted my shoulder reassuringly. "You stood your ground. That's what counts." But inside me, a cascade of feelings. I was proud, yes. Terrified, too. Torn between grief for my son and hope for justice. The judge called us back in. I rose, my legs nearly failing me, leaning on Jennifer as we filed into place. "I want to hear from you. Has anyone reading this ever had their trust broken by family? Do you believe forgiveness is possible, or does justice have to come first to heal an old wound? If you're still with me, stay tuned. The climax of my story is just ahead." That's when I finally found my voice. The judge's chambers were silent, the heavy air pressing down on my shoulders. It felt like all the love, betrayal, hope, fear, and exhaustion of a lifetime hung in the balance. I clung to Robert's photograph, rubbing my thumb over our younger faces, and gathered every ounce of strength I had left. The judge spoke slowly, every word measured. "After careful consideration, this court finds substantial evidence of fraud, manipulation, and undue influence in the rewriting and execution of Mrs. Lawson's will. The testimony, digital records, and expert findings confirm that the changes were not made by her own free will nor with full understanding. All transfers and transactions from Mrs. Lawson's accounts by Mr. Lawson are hereby frozen, pending restitution. The original will, signed and witnessed appropriately, will be reinstated. Further, this matter is referred for investigation of criminal elder abuse and fraud." The verdict unfolded like a sunrise, slow, inevitable, beautiful. A rush of breath filled my lungs. Tears welled up, but for the first time in months, they were not tears of loss or humiliation. They were tears of relief, of justice. Michael stood, face drained of color. All the bravado he'd once worn so easily was gone. He tried to speak. "This isn't fair." I did what she asked, but the judge silenced him with a glance. There were murmurs throughout the courtroom, neighbors, attorneys, fellow parishioners. They saw the truth. They saw me. The lawyer who'd aided Michael in the fraud was called forward for questioning. Patterson's booming voice made it clear. "You accepted signatures delivered as PDFs. You never spoke to your elderly client. You ignored clear evidence of incapacity. This is an ethical violation," the lawyer stammered, excuses falling flat. The legal community would take care of him, but I focused on the faces closest to me. Dot's eyes brimmed with pride and vindication. Jennifer seemed 10 years younger, the heavy lines of worry erased, her arms wrapped tight around me. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder, whispering, "You did it, Maggie. You did it." The news of the verdict spread fast. Before I'd even left the building, word had traveled. The judge had sided with the fraud victim. The son was facing legal consequences. People in my town began to apologize for believing Michael's stories. The next Sunday at church, Mrs. Dwyer hugged me fiercely. "I'm so sorry I listened to gossip, Maggie. You are stronger than anyone I know." Over the next weeks, the consequences spread. Michael faced public shame. His name appeared in the local paper, headlined, "Trust Betrayed, Son Faces Inquiry for Elder Fraud." Rebecca's story on the Tribune went viral. People who once looked up to him now crossed the street to avoid him. Former colleagues deleted him from workgroup chats. Parents whispered, warning their children about greed and selfishness. Legal action ramped up. Patterson organized depositions, freezing Michael's assets and securing the return of every dollar he siphoned. The bank admitted their oversight and wrote me a formal apology. The estate lawyer was suspended pending inquiry. The court ordered Michael to repay the stolen funds within 60 days. His accounts, car, and even a piece of his condominium in the city were repossessed. I watched, both relieved and heartbroken, as the authorities cared more for my story than I'd ever thought possible. Social consequences followed. Word spread to Jennifer's friends in London, to church groups, social clubs, antiques customers who called to offer support. Michael's girlfriend ended their relationship, learning of the lies and manipulation. The humiliation he'd tried to deal me came back threefold. A karmic retribution I didn't wish upon anyone, but one I knew in my heart was necessary for closure. Emotional consequences rippled deeply. My grandchildren, once shielded by Michael's stories, reached out. David, my eldest grandson, wrote me an email. "I understand now, Grandma. I'm sorry I didn't call. I love you." The pain of estrangement didn't vanish overnight, but the truth made healing possible. Through it all, I found myself transformed. I'd never imagined being the protagonist of a public battle for justice, but now people stopped me on the street, asking for advice, sharing their own fears. My story was broadcast through Rebecca's articles and radio interviews. I never sought the spotlight, but if my struggle could help another family reclaim their dignity, I welcomed it. My house, saved from sale, became a sanctuary again. Jennifer stayed for a month, tending the garden and cooking meals. Friends gathered, neighbors returned casseroles and bouquets. Dot, still my touchstone, helped me recover the small comforts Michael had stolen: passwords, account logins, my own sense of security. Together, we held a small celebration: tea, lemon bars, laughter. I looked around the table, eyes misted from joy, and said simply, "Thank you. I may have lost a son, but I have found my voice and the love I thought I'd lost." Michael, now facing formal charges, tried once to contact me. A letter arrived in careful script, apologizing for getting carried away, blaming stress, work, and the belief he was protecting me. I reread it several times, searching for genuine remorse. In the end, I replied with a sentence that cost me tears. "I forgive you, Michael, but I cannot forget. Your actions changed our family forever. My door is open, but only if you choose honesty over greed. The investigation continued. Michael was banned from managing anyone's estate, barred from financial institutions' joint accounts, and placed under monitoring for future improprieties. The lawyer who assisted him lost his license. A stern warning posted publicly at the courthouse. The community breathed a sigh of relief. For once, the right thing had happened. The most powerful moment was when Jennifer, Dot, and I sat together at the breakfast nook, sunlight streaming through the windows I'd thought I'd lose. Jennifer sighed. You fought harder than anyone I know, Mum. I'm proud to call you my mother. Dot, never sentimental, raised her tea. To Margaret Lawson, the bravest woman in Maple Lane. If you're still with me, I want you to know, sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we loved most fiercely. But sometimes justice finds a way. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room becomes the one the world listens to. Standing in that courtroom, looking at my son, I felt sadness, not just for myself, but for the years we'd lost, the trust that would never return. But I also felt a new strength. I realized at last that the hardest battles are fought in quiet rooms with steady hearts. That dignity is something no one can steal unless we hand it over without a fight. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to reclaim your dignity piece by piece? Please tell me in the comments. Your story matters. You matter. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories of strength and redemption. Have you ever experienced family betrayal or seen an elder mistreated? Share your thoughts in the comments. Looking back now, I understand that sometimes the fight for justice isn't just about legalities or money. It's about reclaiming the space you occupy in the world, about refusing to let someone else define your worth. The victory wasn't just in a courtroom or news headline. It was in the return of Jennifer's laughter, Dot's unwavering friendship, and the knowledge that my story could help another mother, grandmother, or friend find the courage to speak. If there's one lesson I can share, it's this. Never underestimate the quiet strength within you. Even when the world tries to silence your truth, hold on to it fiercely. Forgiveness may come in time, but justice is the bridge to healing. The stories shared on this channel are entirely fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. We believe in honoring our elders and treating all family members with love and respect. These stories are meant to inspire reflection on family relationships and the importance of compassion. Any resemblance to real people, events, or families is purely coincidental and unintentional. These narratives carry no specific cultural, political, or religious implications. Today, as I sit at my kitchen table sipping tea with Dot, the sunlight streams through the window, warm, golden, steady, the way it always did before my world turned upside down. But nothing is quite the same, and in truth, I am not the same woman I was. When justice was served and the story spread, the aftermath felt both overwhelming and surreal. At first, I barely left the house, afraid of lingering whispers, unsure if people viewed me as a victim or as a hero. But the world surprised me. Our little town rallied in ways I never imagined. Neighbors came with food, flowers, letters full of encouragement. Church friends called to check on me, some admitting they'd once doubted my story, but were deeply sorry now. Jennifer extended her trip, determined to make up for lost time. We spent quiet mornings in the garden, talking openly about things we'd avoided for years, her regrets about living so far away, the guilt she carried for not protecting me sooner. She cried, honest and unguarded. I took her hands in mine and said softly, "You did everything you could, darling. Life tests us all in different ways, and you've always loved me fiercely. That is enough. Healing isn't linear. It's a zigzag line, sometimes looping back into pain before heading forward again. There were days I woke in a panic, convinced Michael would return and try another trick. Sometimes at night I walked the empty halls, touching framed photos, thinking of moments we shared. The bittersweet ache of betrayal would twist in my chest, but slowly, hope pressed up through the cracks. Dot, loyal as sunrise, never let me wallow for long. She made sure our Thursdays remained sacred: tea, laughter, little projects for charity. She once scolded me for moping about, reminding me, "Margaret, you taught everyone in this town how to pick themselves up." I realized, then, I didn't need to be ashamed of my pain, or of fighting for my dignity. Rebecca sent updates on her stories, emails from people across the country, thanking me for sharing, some asking for advice, others simply wishing me peace. She visited once more with her husband, both bringing a cake with strength iced in bold letters. As we ate together, she told me, "You've helped hundreds, Maggie. I don't know if you realize how rare that is." Attorney Patterson guided me through the logistics of restoring my accounts, moving my assets back under my control and updating my will exactly as I wished. Equal shares for Jennifer and Michael, with clauses protecting me from any future manipulation. He offered gentle wisdom. "Your courage will guide others, Mrs. Lawson. The law needs stories like yours to change for the better." Michael, estranged now, sent 2 more letters. Neither felt like a true apology. One blamed outside influences, another asked for forgiveness, claiming he was lost and never meant real harm. The second time I replied, firm but kind. "Michael, I will always love you, but actions have consequences. You must face what you've done, and only truth can rebuild what you've broken. My door is open if you choose the difficult path of honesty and change." He didn't answer. There were days when the silence felt heavy, when I wished for easy forgiveness, for time to rewind and erase his choices. But wisdom comes with age, and I understand now that sometimes separation is the only way to preserve peace. My heart aches for the son I lost, but life demands we move forward, gathering what is left and watering it with hope. Jennifer's children visited from London. Sweet David, now in his 20s, shy but earnest. Olivia and Sam, polite, reserved, each with eyes wide to the world's dangers. They listened as I told family stories and explained the power of standing up for yourself. David asked questions about the court, about Michael's gambling and lies. Olivia drew pictures for me, flowers with roots that wove into words like hope, honor, and family. Sam, the youngest, hugged me tightly and whispered, "Grandma, you're the bravest." My story became a shield for them, a lesson to carry when faced with life's inevitable storms. Mrs. Patel, my neighbor, became a lifelong friend, a surprising gift. She came by for coffee, shared her own tale of a cousin nearly betrayed in similar fashion. Together, we built a support group for elders who felt isolated or endangered by family. We meet every month, 5 women and 1 kind, bashful widower. We talk, share legal tips, sometimes just laugh about our grandchildren's silly antics. In those meetings, I find immense comfort. Each of us is proof that survival isn't shameful, but triumphant. Dot, for her part, organized a little ceremony at the antique shop I once owned. She and Jennifer decorated the front window with photos of our happiest moments. A sign that read, "Margaret's Way, truth always prevails." We invited everyone, old friends, neighbors, supporters, served coffee and lemon bars, and donated surplus antiques to families in need. Standing there, surrounded by warmth and kindness, I realized how much love had come full circle. And that legacy is built on more than money or property. It's built on memory, on resilience, on compassion. Looking back now, I see the signs I missed, the trust I gave too freely, the guilt that blinded me. The small warnings in Michael's tone and his impatience. If I could tell my younger self anything, I'd say, protect yourself, ask questions, and don't surrender your independence to keep the peace. But I'd also say, forgive when you're able. Hold love close, even when hurt comes from family. Jennifer, preparing to fly home at last, hugged me long and hard. She said, "Mum, you gave me courage to leave when I needed to, and now you gave me courage to come home and fight." Our eyes met, full of tears. "Promise me you'll call me anytime, about anything. No secrets, no pride. I promise," I whispered. "And you promise me the same." Dot, as always, winked and said, "We'll keep this old lady out of trouble yet." My laughter was loud, unashamed, healing. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this: family isn't perfect. Love is sometimes tested in ways that tear at our souls. Betrayal shakes us, makes us question who we are. But dignity, truth, and perseverance are gifts no one can steal. When you lose everything, you learn what matters most: honesty, kindness, and the courage to speak. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories of strength and redemption. Have you ever experienced family betrayal or seen an elder mistreated? Share your thoughts in the comments so none of us feels alone. I leave you with this: never underestimate the strength in your own voice. And if you ever feel powerless, remember that justice has a way of finding those who hold fast to truth. You are not alone. The stories shared on this channel are entirely fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. We believe in honoring our elders and treating all family members with love and respect. These stories are meant to inspire reflection on family relationships and the importance of compassion. Any resemblance to real people, events, or families is purely coincidental and unintentional. These narratives carry no specific cultural, political, or religious implications.